Assalamu alaikum students. How are you all? Hope you all are safe and healthy staying in your home. Students, today we are going to revise the story Puru the Brave. In this story we are going to know about the braveness of Puru. Students, before getting into the text, here we have some characters. Alexander, the king of Macedonia, who conquered Greece, Persia, etc. And Puru, the king of northern India. Along with them, 4 Greek generals and 2 soldiers are there in this story. Okay, students? Now we are going to read the conversation dialogues between the Alexander and his generals. Okay, students? First, Alexander said, "The Battle of Zealand will go down in the history of our country." Students, this conversation is happening where? This conversation is happening in the camp of Alexander on the banks of the Zealand. Alexander is sitting on a high chair and his 4 generals are sitting on low chairs. 2 Greek soldiers are standing at the door. Alexander is having a talk with his generals. Okay, students? Okay. Let's see the conversation between conversation dialogues happen in between Alexander and his generals. Okay? Alexander first said the Battle of Zealand will go down in the history of our country. By listening this, first general said, it will go down in the history of India too. Then second general said, it will go down in the history of the world. And the third general said, I have never fought such a battle before. After that, the fourth general said, I haven't either. Until the last moment, I couldn't believe that we would be able to defeat the army of Puru. Okay, students, what is that conversation happening in between them? This conversation is about the war of Zealand. Why it is? Because this war was fought on the bank of river Zealand. That's why this war is called as Zealand War. And the war is over. After the war, Alexander and his generals having a talk about the war. What happened during the war and after the war. They all are praising the war. First general is saying it will go down in the history of India. Means it will be remembered in the history of India. And the second general is saying it will remain in the history of the world. And the third and fourth generals are saying, third general said, I have never fought such a battle before. And the fourth general is saying, until the last moment, I couldn't believe that we would be able to defeat the army of Puru. It was such a great battle that even after years, it will be remembered. Not only in India, but also in whole world. Okay, students? By listening his 4 generals, Alexander is saying, yes, it has been a great battle, perhaps the greatest of my life. I must say, every Indian soldier fought like a tiger. Alexander says, yes, it has been a great battle. I had fought many wars against many kingdoms, but this war is the greatest war of my life. I must say, every Indian soldier fought like a tiger. Imagine the war skills and ideology the Indian king Puru. Means, though he lost the Zealand war, Alexander started praising all the Indian soldiers by saying they fought like a tiger. About their war skills and about their ideology, how they did the war. Alexander is praising. Okay, students? And the first general said, they fought like devils, Your Majesty. Then Alexander said, the Indians are good soldiers. They know how to fight. They fight better than our men. Students, here, this is one of the best compliment to any kingdom's king and soldier by an enemy or opposition king who had defeated them, okay? And Alexander said, Indian soldiers are good soldiers. They fought better than our men. And the second general said, but their generals aren't so good as ours. And Alexander said, if you mean that they aren't so brave as the Greek generals, I don't agree with you. Students, here Alexander again started appreciating Indian generals and saying, don't say that our generals are more better than their generals. Then second general said, but they aren't very skillful, Your Highness. Second general again started, means again stated that they aren't very skillful. They aren't very skillful, Your Highness. Means he is saying they are not that much skillful like our generals. Your Highness. Then Alexander said, I see. What do you mean? And here I agree with you. The Indian generals are still following the old methods of warfare. Their battle plans are faulty and they depend too much upon their elephants. But as fighters, they are wonderful. I have the highest respect for them. Here, Alexander agrees with his generals and says the Indian generals are good generals and soldiers, but the problem is they are still following the old methods of warfare, means the rules, strategies, plans that kings follow before they do war. In the movie, like in the movie Bahubali, students, we have observed how they follow warfare. Like that, Alexander says they are good fighters, but they are, means they too much depend upon their elephants, but as fighters they are wonderful. I have the highest respect for them. Then the third general said, I was amazed to see how Puru fought in the battle of Zealam. Students, here third general started saying about Puru. I was very much amazed to see how Puru fought in the battle of Zealam. And for generally saying, he continued to fight even when others had left the field. I think he killed at least 100 of our men with his sword. So here, fourth general says, he continued to fight even though his soldiers and others had left the field. He killed 100 of our men with his sword. By listening this, second general says, and injured many more. First general said he was badly injured himself. And second general said that's why we are able to capture him. Okay, students, first general said he was badly injured himself. And second general said that's why we were able to capture him. Okay, students, then Alexander said, oh, he is a brave man and a great soldier. I wish he was one of my generals. By listening that, how Puru fought in the war. He injured badly himself, and because of those injuries only his generals were able to capture him. By listening all this and about the greatness of Puru, Alexander says, oh, Puru was a brave man and a great soldier. I wish he was one of my generals. And second general said, he is a proud man, your majesty. Then Alexander said, a soldier is not a soldier if he is not proud. I am not angry with him at all. He was not frightened by the news of my victories and refused to bow before me. Okay, students, Alexander says a soldier is not a soldier if he is not proud. I am not angry with him at all. He was not afraid by the news of my victories and refused to surrender his kingdom to me and show respect to me because of my fear how other kings surrendered their kingdoms to me, but Puru didn't. Then first general said, he will he will brought to you, your majesty, soon. Let us see how he behaves. First general said, Puru will be brought in front of you, Your Majesty. Then Alexander said, I am sure he will not behave like a coward. Coward means darpok, kaya, we can say. Okay, students? Then Alexander said, I am sure he will not behave like a coward. Then a soldier came. Sir, Puru has been brought to the camp. One of the soldiers came into the tent and said to Alexander, Sir, Puru has been brought to the camp. Then Alexander said, Has he been put in chains? Soldier said, Yes, Your Majesty. Then Alexander asked, Has he put in chains? When he heard that he put in chains, Alexander said, Go and remove the chains and bring him in. I don't want to see a brave man in chains. Immediately go and remove the chains and bring him in. Then Alexander said, They should not have put him in chain. He is a king besides being a great soldier. Why he kept in chains, students? The king or soldier who captured during or after the war, who is the winning kingdom, kept them as a prisoner and kept them in a chains. But Alexander doesn't want to see Puru in chains, so he ordered his soldiers to remove his chains, as he is a king besides being a great soldier. Then the soldiers bows and goes out, brings Puru in. Puru enters with 4 Greek soldiers following him. Alexander and the generals stand up to greet him. Puru joins the palms of his hands and raises them to his forehead to return the greeting. As soon as Puru enters with 4 Greek soldiers, Alexander and his 4 generals stood up in a way of giving respect to greet him. Puru also joined his 2 palms to greet them in return. You all know how to say namaste to give respect them. Okay, students? Then Alexander said to the soldier, You may go now. Then the soldiers bowed and went out. Alexander said to Puru, Well, how are you, king? Then Puru replied, My name is Puru. Then Alexander said, All right. Are you sorry for the mistake you made, Puru? Students, this conversation between Alexander and Puru is very interesting. Now keep your attention, okay? Alexander asked Puru, How are you, king? Puru replied, I am not king. My name is Puru. Then Alexander says, All right. Are you sorry for the mistake you made, Puru? Then Puru said, I made no mistake, sir. Though he had fought with Alexander and his army, he was not at all afraid of his question and directly replied to Alexander, I made no mistake, sir. Then Alexander said, Didn't you reject my proposal? Then Puru said, I did. I refused to be your vassal. What was the proposal made by the Alexander, students? Alexander used to send a type of proposal to the king before he'll do the war. That is, King Purushottam surrendered means he wrote these sentences in that letter, okay? In his proposal, that is, King Purushottam surrendered yourself, kingdom and soldiers to me and became my general. But Purushottam rejected the proposal. Now Alexander asking about that proposal to Puru. For that, Puru replied, Yes, of course, I rejected because I don't want to be your vassal. Means, I don't want to be your servant. I don't want to be your general. And don't want my kingdom serving under you. My kingdom should be independent. Then Alexander said, Do you know that many kings have gladly agreed to be my vassals? Then Puru said, I know that, and I also know that none of them is Puru. Then Alexander said, "Do you know that many kings have gladly agreed and simply surrendered themselves to me, their kingdoms?" But Puru replied, "Of course I know that, and also know that none of them is Puru." उनमें से कोई भी पुरु नहीं है और पुरु हो भी नहीं सकता, he said. Then first general said softly to the second general, "He is indeed a very proud man." वो बहुत proud man है. First general said to second general slowly. Then Alexander said, "Don't you realize that you are my prisoner?" When Purushottam was speaking proudly in spite of losing the battle, Alexander said, "Don't you realize you are my prisoner now?" Then Puru said, "I do, but that doesn't make any difference to me. I am still the lawful king of my country." Puru replied, "Of course, I accept I am your prisoner, but that doesn't make any difference to me. I am still a lawful king of my country." Then Alexander, impressed, and he asked, "How shall I treat you?" Puru said, "As a king should treat another king." Means Puru said, "You should treat me how a king treats another king." Then Alexander said, "Puru, you are a brave man. I am pleased with you. I want to make friends with you. Will you be a friend to me?" He offered his friendship to Puru. Alexander offered his friendship to Puru. Puru said, "On one condition." Alexander asked, "What is that condition?" Puru said, "My kingdom should remain independent and you should treat me as your equal." Then Alexander said, Puru said, "Though I am captured king, my kingdom should remain independent and you should treat me as your equal." After thinking for a few minutes, Alexander said, "Agreed," and honored Puru by calling him brother. Puru said, "I'll do my best to be worthy of the friendship of Alexander the Great." When Alexander honored him by calling him brother, Puru said, "I'll do my best to be worthy of the friendship by saying Alexander the Great." Okay, students. The generals bowed to Alexander and Puru. Why the generals bow to Alexander and Puru? Because Alexander agreed Puru to be equal. Both Alexander and Puru should get equal respect, so they bow. This is the story of a great Indian king, Purushottama Raju. Okay, students, hope you understood our revision of Puru the Brave. In this story, how Puru with his courage, braveness and greatness, he impressed opposition king Alexander. Okay, students, let's stop here and we'll continue our class in our next session. Till then, thank you and Allah Hafiz.